So, thanks for everyone for joining us. I mentioned this earlier, but if you are on the call right now, feel free to, if you're in a space where it's okay to do so, feel free to pop your video on and say hi. We'd love to see your faces. Um, and I'm going to share my screen, which means I may not actually see your faces in a second. But let me do that. So this is the Championing Innovation and Advancing Technology through the Convergence Innovation Competition. It's a very long title, but we're going to talk a little bit about the Convergence Innovation Competition, which is our CIC. Go forward. I'm Faith Sumter. I'm the Program and Operations Manager for all things CIC, RNOC, the Research Network Operations Center, and IPAT generally. So one of the things I do is help coordinate the Thursday Think Tank series, but I also have a big role in CIC. I'm going to let my colleagues introduce themselves. So I guess we'll start with Shiva and then go to Russ and Matt.
Thanks, Ray. Hi, everybody. I'm Shiva Jayaraman. I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships here at the IPAT. I help manage internal and external relationships and collaborations within and without Georgia Tech. Russ?
Hey everybody, I'm Russ Clark. I'm faculty in computer science and generally teach and work in things around mobile and networking and IoT. And together with Mr. Sanders, we've been corralling this thing called the CIC for a number of years, and excited to talk to students and see what kind of projects we got coming up this year.
Matt Sanders, I'm the also research scientist in IPAT and Director of Research Operations, work with Russ on RNOC and projects there. And yeah, I guess if CIC is a child, then it's an adolescent now, right? Is that right? So, I don't know what that means, but
it's going to want a car soon.
Right.
You can get a great deal on some sportages right now.
Yeah, maybe that's the way to go. So if you have any questions, we'll talk a little bit about CIC generally, but feel free to follow up with us and we'll show the slide again at the end. But you can email us at cic@godtech.edu. We are doing a series of consultations, so if you're interested in that, let us know. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Shameless plug for our social media. And those are on the screen right now. So going into what is the Convergence Innovation Competition a little bit, if my slides will advance. Thinking. Okay, so we're hosting this today, but exactly a month from today is the deadline to submit materials for that competition. It is a competition that we host twice a year in the fall and the spring. So this is our spring 2021 competition. It is an opportunity for students to showcase viable working prototypes. And, you know, Matt, Russ, Shiva, if you want to jump in, feel free to do so. And really those are focusing on problems that exist in the world and how you may solve them. So we definitely invite faculty to use CIC as part of their coursework, for students to submit projects they're working on in classes or personal projects or anything of that sort. And we'll do some brainstorming a little later about that. This is the 14th year, as we mentioned earlier, so it is an almost eligible to drive in the state of Georgia competition, I guess, if it could drive. And about over 200 students per year participate. It is open to all Georgia Tech students, regardless of major, campus, or program. So that is one thing that makes it unique. So some of the things that are benefits, this picture that you see where Shiva is looking very engaged, talking to some students, was obviously before the pandemic. This is from a couple of competitions ago, but we typically would have kind of an in-person opportunity where judges go around and talk to students about their projects, give them feedback, things of that nature. So it is really good exposure, and we're replicating that in a virtual environment. Contacts with campus and industry leaders, getting that real-world feedback from the judges who are from innovation and inside of Georgia Tech, working on like entrepreneurship and things like that. But we also have industry partners who give their time and feedback and experience to students. Students retain their IP, which is really helpful for them if they want to go on to continue commercialization. One team will win a Create X golden ticket, which is automatic entry into the summer launch program, I believe that's the name of it. And then we also have great prizes. So for the spring competition, here are some of the dates. So right now, as I mentioned earlier, we're hosting consultations as teams need them. That is all leading up to the submission deadline of April 11th at 11:59 Eastern Time. So the things that you would need to submit as part of that is your project name, a description, a logo, your that kind of highlights your project itself, slides if you would like, and your website. So those are the things that we ask for as part of that submission, and all of this information is available on our website. We will do a first round of judging where judges will review those videos and the submission materials from April 12th to 18th, so we give them a little bit of time to do that. We'll provide feedback to all the teams on the 19th, and then the 20th to 22nd will be the finalist judging. So we'll invite a group of teams to participate in that, and they will have small conversations or small group conversations with a selected group of judges, so they get kind of that real world, real-time feedback based, as well as getting that feedback from the initial set of judges. We will announce the winners on April 23rd. So both that, the round 2 judging, that will be scheduled with the teams, and they'll have the opportunity to interact in real world. And the winner announcement will also be live. All of these will happen virtually, though. All right. So I've been talking a lot. So Rush, Shiva, Matt, anybody want to chat about convergence areas?
Sure. So the previously we've done a few different ways of having focus areas or categories in the CIC, and last year we switched it up because we realized that there were a lot of other folks who were establishing great content around focus areas for research and solving problems and entrepreneurship. Certainly a lot of our partnerships around sustainability and wellness. So we decided to revisit this, and instead of trying to come up with pithy category names, we're aligning around what we're calling convergence areas. These are really just areas of interest that align with our values and our goals and what iPad is about. They are very much in tune with and represented in Georgia Tech's strategic plan, and what we see coming out of the UN sustainability, sustainable development goals, so all that to say that what we're interested in is absolutely projects that have an impact on people, generally involve technology, and we want to make sure that the things that students are interested in innovating in are things that we can include in the CIC. So we have links on the website to some of these things. There's actually some great content and a lot of the motivation for problems that need to be solved on that UN site, especially.
And I just dropped in the chat the link to the website overall, and you can explore that. Probably should have done that earlier, so sorry about that, guys. So we're going to, that's kind of the bulk of the content. Feel free to, if you want to ask us questions about that, but we want to kind of leave some opportunity to talk about a couple of questions, and I'm going to leave this slide up for most of the rest of our conversation. But what are some projects that you, or if you're working with students, that they are currently working on for courses, for fun, that you think may connect? We can kind of do some feedback or anything like that. So I am able to see you all. I figured out how to do that on my screen. So. questions you have about CIC generally. You can drop them in the chat as well. I'll keep an eye on that.
I have, can I mention something?
Mm-hmm.
Please.
I'm co-teaching a class this term with Keith McGregor that we were calling Global Entrepreneurship. And it's a little bit of a link to Venture Lab and CreateX. But the thing that's, I think, a little new about it is that, first of all, it's all global teams. So each team has people from Shenzhen, maybe Metz, but Metz participation was a little low, and Atlanta. And it's a combination of synchronous and asynchronous and flipped. The synchronous part is flipped. And it's SDGs. We use the SDGs to frame the student projects. I think we have 5 student teams. They're doing things like mental health, renewable energy, gender-based violence, a couple others. And I think Keith and I are really surprised that it's kind of working at all, and kind of cool so far that we can manage these global teams virtually.
Yep.
So one
Congrats.
question is, how can CIC, is there a way to take this global experiment that Keith and I are doing this year and think about how that would fit into CIC? Since there's plenty of overlap, I think, at least in the way we're framing the innovation and entrepreneurship challenges. And then another thing is, more broadly, this whole class came as I was trying to keep the Shenzhen innovation, inclusive innovation, and global entrepreneurship program alive in the presence of the pandemic. And so we had all these ambitions, and still do, for all kinds of craziness that could link to Shenzhen, especially for projects that really could benefit from the hardware and maker ecosystem there, which is kind of world leading, and I think you all know is quite special. So there too might be other linkages that could be beyond just the particularities of this global entrepreneurship class, but looking towards a future where we could be situating stuff physically in Shenzhen again.
Mm-hmm. So I'll jump in and say congrats on being able to pull that off. I know we've had some experience trying to support teams in Metz and in Atlanta at the same time, and yes, it can be done, and yes, it's hard. So the fact that you have teams that are international is all the more impressive. And the other thing I'll say is, yes, I think we have done the CIC in Metz previously. We've done a couple different versions of it there. Russ and I have both been over. I've been over to teach there. Ron Hutchins was over there to teach. So we've got good experience there, and I think that that was one of the first places where we really played with the format of the competition, and I think COVID is yet another variant of kind of how to do the competition. So I'm pretty confident that we can make participation in CIC by your teams, a meaningful one, and definitely would encourage them this semester to, enter and try it. It's not. And that's really the message for anyone who's got students who have projects in some form. It's usually not that difficult to kind of, whatever the topic of the course is, it's usually there's some delta with what needs to be done to get a competition entry together. And by design, we try to make it so that it's not terribly difficult to do, right? We don't want to kind of limit who can participate. And a lot of times the first thing that comes up is, well, I don't have a prototype usually people are kind of thinking more strictly in terms of what a prototype is. So clickable prototypes are just fine, or paper prototypes are fine. It's more that they kind of have that kind of big picture of some kind of end-to-end solution. That's the most important thing.
So I
What's your
should just
timeline?
advertise it amongst our students is the simplest thing to do.
Absolutely, yeah, and we're happy to meet with them either as a group or individually to kind of coach them on kind of the best strategy for taking what they've been working on and making it a viable entry. So yeah, please
What's the
do.
timeline of the program, Mike? Does it follow the Atlanta semester?
Yeah. I don't know about Matt's, but Shenzhen, the calendar is the same as Atlanta, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the same.
So CIC is the bulk of it takes place the last about 4 weeks from the end of the semester, 3 weeks from the end of the semester, and so we do it that way to stay away from the absolute end of the semester and all the crunch on the students, but late enough that they should have made meaningful progress on their sort of semester projects they're working on, and really for the students that want to engage, it gives them an opportunity to get some feedback there as they and sort of practice what should they be doing for the final week push on the project, for the class, right? So it seems to fit pretty well in that, we, again, as Matt said, we've moved it around and played with that a lot over the years, but that seems to be the best fit. Yeah, it'd be I would also volunteer, be happy to chat with the students, do some Teams calls or whatever to just chat about their projects and answer questions, sort of whatever we can do to make them feel more comfortable about the opportunity.
Okay, thanks.
I want to see, do we have any, I don't recognize all the names on here, so if we have any students who are currently working on projects and you want to talk about them, or you just want to say hello and maybe schedule a time to talk about the projects, then please, either unmute and say hello or drop something in the chat. And likewise, if there's any faculty or researchers who are working with students, and I don't know that we have anyone on who's working with VIP teams, but we've had some VIP teams do entries on kind of parts of their work before, so that's been something. I know we have a lot of folks who work with VIP teams. Hello.
So, can you guys hear me?
We can.
Hi, so I'm Peter Gay. I'm with the executive MBA program at HEAP. Is with the MOT project. All the different resources that Georgia Tech has. So I kind of stumbled across this today. At any rate, we do have a team that we've got for our project. We're really exploring some concepts around virtual reality and how that intersects with soft skills training or even healthcare. So I'm excited to know that there's a space here for some competition or even some brainstorming and some help with some of the things that have come up. A lot of the folks on my team, we're kind of in different professions. However, this is one thing that we're passionate about, and we see that it's an emerging technology and just kind of see how it crosswalks into some of the other industries. So I'm going to pass this along. I'm the only representative of the whole MOT cohort here, so I'll definitely let them know that there's some things that we can benefit from here.
Great. Well, I'm glad you found us and joined us.
Glad I did.
Yeah.
Oh, I do have one quick question. I think Faith or someone earlier just mentioned that this CIC will be done twice per year. because it may be a little bit soon for us since we have so many things that are due in the middle of April. So when is the next cycle of this competition?
So normally the fall competition, the deadline is like the second-ish Sunday in November. So it's still kind
Okay.
of the same time frame towards the end of the semester. So I think this
And
year was
it,
like November 10th or something like that, but it'll be in that same
November 10th. So
ballpark.
when does that wrap up? 'Cause I think 10.
Yeah, we try to wrap it up
Where did
before
that
like the
participate?
Thanksgiving. Sorry, you're cutting out a little bit for me, but normally we
Okay.
try to wrap up the whole thing before Thanksgiving, before that break. Um, but the deadline is early part of November. I think you might be frozen for
I
me.
think, yeah, I
But if
think we lost.
Yeah, Peter Gay, if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat because I was um, I could hear you for a little bit, but I think you cut out for a second.
Anyone else working on projects or working with students have questions?
Hey, this is Marcia
Hey,
from
Marcia.
Hi.
Hey.
I missed the first part of the presentation, I'm sorry to say. So can you please share the presentation so that I'll have the dates for the competition and
Sure.
can be
Of course.
promoting that in the highlights? And then if there's any collateral that you have, a logo, a flyer, anything that we can push out to the iPad audiences, that would be very helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Sure.
I will say, if anyone is teaching in the summer or in the fall and wants to think about, how to maybe incorporate in CIC into the course, then we'd be happy to talk to you about that as well. We have had folks work on things in the summer and then submit it in the following fall. Sometimes teams stick together and keep working on things. The other thing I'll just mention is that we also have students who just do projects for fun and submit them. So it's not a requirement that things are tied to a course. Um, we've had roommates submit projects that they work on in their spare time, or people who have their own hobby projects, so it's really open to anything that um, any way that people are doing things. It's not tied to any particular course or coursework or requirements.
And various degrees of maturity from
Right.
we worked on this for a couple of weekends to some partners and or even lone individuals that had already had startup companies
Mm-hmm.
that they were looking for some more feedback and exposure. So, lots of different ways people can take advantage of this.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the students that I work with are they're freshmen, they're first year students, and there's some students that are transfer students, so they're third year students. And some of the projects that their end of the course project last year revolved around social justice in the Atlanta area and in the urban community and collaborating with Georgia Tech Police Department. So I don't know if that's because they are first year students, if that's something that CIC, if that'd be a good fit for CIC, because they're, just starting in their academic career.
Yeah,
Or does it?
I think definitely the topics fit. Those are, I think we've seen some great things, student work around social justice, financial equality, and there's some wonderful opportunities in that space for students to work with organizations. It really comes down to what's the maturity of the ideas and the project at the end of the semester. I think that's a good case where it might be that it's nice to promote the idea to continue working on things and aim for, submitting something. So it might not be that they're quite there at the end of one semester their freshman year, but it might be something that they kind of a passion project or a way to incorporate it into other class projects in the future. The way we think about CIC is that first and foremost, we want it to be an opportunity for students. So if it's motivating and it's a good opportunity, then that's good. But we also see it as a good kind of tool, right, for us to engage with those outside entities. So it might be that bringing in some of the partners they're working with would be a good thing to do. So we're open to working with you or anyone else on the campus to kind of figure out how to use the CIC to help meet other goals. Usually these things can be complementary.
Perfect. Sounds good.
And I'll, especially for freshmen, but for all of them, make it clear that they shouldn't be thinking about this as a one-time thing. They can enter this year, get some feedback, build on that, come back next year. I think the record is we had a student that actually had a winning entry, 3 different CICs, 3 totally different projects. While that was an exception, it's not at all unusual for us to see teams progress and come back next year, sometimes with the same project, sometimes with a completely different project. We're by no means trying to make this an exclusive limited time opportunity, right? It's for students to use as much and as really throughout their time at Georgia Tech.
Very good. Good to know. Thanks.
Yeah, I know. Faith mentioned it earlier, but and we talked about like the international students. I think this might be the only competition on campus that is open to pretty much any Georgia Tech student. It is all majors, all years, graduate, undergraduate, regardless of campus. So it's we have had we also have had folks who have graduated, but they're part of a team. As long as there's somebody associated with tech, or if they're a recent graduate, then they can be included. All right. Any other questions before we wrap up?
Got some folks in the chat. Lee said she's going to share it she doesn't have a VIP class, but she'll share with some colleagues.
Awesome. Thank you.
And then Peter Gay, we chatted with. I think that was it.
Okay. Great.
But I will put up our contact info, and if you have a question, feel free to interrupt me. But we put up our contact information again, and wrong thing, went too far. So feel free to email any of us and reach out about CIC, or if you're teaching a course and have questions or anything like that, we're happy to be a resource and pop into a Zoom, or I guess Blue Jeans technically. Blue Jeans. Someone asked about the recording. We'll post it on the iPad website probably next week, if not by the end of this week, but it will be there. I think that's it. We'll stay on here, but I'm going to stop recording.
Yeah, I wanted to.
Go ahead.
You mentioned resources, and it made me think we should just mention that if students need devices, cell phones and maybe other types of peripherals or development kits, things like that. We have a lending library that we can make things available for teams working on the CIC or doing research. So you can find more about that on the RNOC website under lending library.
We'll type that website in the chat just in case, because I don't think that's on this. Well, thank you all for attending today. We appreciate, your engagement and your feedback. And as we mentioned, please feel free to reach out. And with that, I will stop recording, but we'll hang out for a couple minutes if anyone has questions they just didn't want to be recorded. So thank you.